Some conversations really get my attention these days. And this one with Tyler Crawford from Fullsteam.io is a really unique one. I could relate with Tyler. If you've ever felt like insurance is broken and you wanted to do something about it, then this podcast will be interesting to you. A couple of things about Tyler. He's got a very specific niche. And so when he looked at technology for his niche, he wanted to do things on his own, and so he's figured out how to blend what he knew his customers need in terms of info gathering, and partner with vendors to build a stack that kind of gives his clients a unique experience. And we really respect that here at Be Atomic. Couple other things. Is building your own stuff for everybody? What is the balance between tech and human? Tyler's got a really good take on that, and I think something we could all learn from. Finally, I would say something he says in here makes a lot of sense. Speed is not your friend when infrastructure is not ready. Listen to how he talks about those things. And of course, insurance infrastructure is what we're focused on at Be Atomic with Service Center. Plug in Service Center to your AMS, your phones, and your email, and allow us to separate processing from service. And what does that do? Well, it allows you to turn service into revenue and process into an outsourced service that allows you to be able to lower your cost and help your people out. So all the things that Tyler's focused on are core to our business. And so we love these conversations with leaders like him. Tyler, it's 14 degrees and snowing in Cleveland, and so I'm bundled up. But I know you and Full Steam are located on the West Coast. Where do we find you today?
That's right. Yeah, we are in the Venice Marina part of Los Angeles. So it's a
Okay.
little gray here, but we're definitely not covered in snow and I can wear a shirt outside. So
I love it. You're bringing the LA vibes to our podcast this afternoon. So I wanted to pick up in our conversation you and I had a couple weeks ago, um, especially about where agents and brokers can bring value, how they need to be thinking, and how specifically Full Steam, which is your agency, is focused on how to integrate technology and process into a unique experience. So, just for those listening, not everyone's thinking that way. And so when I came across
Mhm.
and the way he's thinking about the business, I think it's worth a listen. So, can you talk a little bit about how you even got into insurance? Just give us some background on that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think like a lot of people in this business, we or myself came into insurance by opportunity. I think it's easy to say by mistake, but really before I was in this business, I was more in marketing, sort of product driven roles at some startups and some bigger companies. Got acquired by some pretty well known names, but in between my next kind of phase of my career, I had an opportunity to join an agency early on that was doing things sort of like what most agencies are doing today. And that's where I say opportunity. I learned quickly how the typical insurance agency operates. And I learned quickly how important insurance is for any business, and that most people that you meet, most business owners that you meet, are having some pain points with the insurance process. So it was super interesting to me to come in and fix that and scale a business that kind of leverage some of the skill that I learned prior to being in the insurance business. Um, so that's where we are today. We're building a insurance advisory agency and platform that's solving a lot of problems that the customer has, right? The operators, the founders, the executives when it comes to managing and transacting insurance. We're also solving a lot of the problems that most people who work in the agency sort of deal with, whether it's customer service, account managers, agents, et cetera.
Yeah, and I love I'm a startup guy too, so I love anybody who starts anything, and I'm always cheering for that. I'm curious, you find you're in tech and media, you find yourself in a good old fashioned insurance brokerage, right? Um,
Mhm.
and yet you make the decision after years to start and kind of do it. Is it hard, at least from your perspective, was it harder to take an existing business and improve it, or were you just more excited about the opportunity to go start something new?
Well, it didn't happen overnight, right? Like I kind of dug my heels into the agency that I was working with at the time and focused less on fixing the business and getting really good at insurance and just learning about how these businesses operated. Cause I didn't start Full Steam until about 6 years or so after being at this agency. So yeah, there was definitely a process to how I approached actually taking that first step as like an entrepreneur and building this and solving those problems. And like if you look at what we've solved so far and kind of the list that continues to grow, like, that the things we've done over time didn't happen quickly, right? We've probably solved 30 of the 60 problems that we have on our list. And the first 10 of those probably took us 2 years to solve, right? Like building software doesn't happen quickly, and it didn't happen quickly, 4 or 5 years ago. I think in the past year that's changed, and we're going to continue to see the speed at which we can solve our problems from a software standpoint, especially within the insurance business, move a lot quicker than it used to.
Yeah, so you talk I love that you have a list of problems you wanna solve because I think, I love that because too many times we talk to agents and brokers, and it's just there's a new problem every day coming from everywhere, and we can
Yeah.
easily lose focus on things. So the idea that you started full steam with a list of problems that you wanna solve and you're halfway through it is awesome. So, talk about some of those problems that you've kind of gone through or that you're working on solving or that have already solved and you're paying dividends on.
Yeah. I think it's best to like define what a problem is, because at the end of the day, like as an agency, if our time isn't being spent on revenue driven things or meaningful conversations with our clients, those are problems, right? Anything that essentially costs us time, in my eyes, is a problem. And I think a lot of problems that most agencies have just become sort of like the norm, and they just get used to it. And it's like
Mhm.
the simple things, like how quickly can you get a document signed, or how quickly can you set up billing, or how quickly can you process a certificate, an endorsement, you name it. So all of our problems are just things that are costing us time. Um, so, if we look at the sort of first phase of a customer, that's going to be, how do we collect data, right? How do we
Yeah.
take data from our customers' heads, from their systems, move them into our systems, move them into our carrier systems, and then, get those into quotes, proposals, et cetera. So that first phase was really important to us because I think most agencies are pushing either PDFs or doing a lot of things over email, or they're
Mhm.
sending their customers to a third party, PDF filler type of company,
Yep.
which are all fine. And like, that's kind of the way it's always been done. But in my eyes, like there was a much more effective way to do that, right? There's a way to put our customer through our own application, only ask them the questions that they really need to see, right? Because lots of PDFs or these, uh, technology platforms, they ask too much. They're
Yeah.
confusing. They don't have logic, and they stop there, right? You get the information, then where does it go? So we built basically an application that's very logic driven. It only asks the questions that our customers need to see, and then it moves into our management system, right? So we can actually transfer that into our system automatically. So there's not extra work done. And then we're able to move that then into carrier portals, automate into wholesalers, essentially email boxes, and then just get the quoting and underwriting process started without really any wasted time.
I love that because your ROI on that, your 3 points of ROI pay dividends and they're exponential. 1, it's your time, right? So it's your people. Yeah, I gotta scale an organization around all of this stuff. That's a problem. 2, um, relationships, right? It's you're wasting relationships if you're making people look at forms that don't apply to their business, asking them questions that don't matter to them, which makes you look like
Yeah,
a genius, right? And agents do that too often. And then 3, it's that process is not driving revenue because we don't even know if we're gonna be able to write that thing yet, right? So, I love that
exactly.
when you look at that, the problem starts with it's either time, revenue, or relationship, and if I'm burning any of those, then I'm not doing it the right way. Is that a fair way to think about it?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And like, I'm always reminded by our clients how the little things can break the trust, right? As soon as you start to waste your customers' time or put them through a process that upsets them, right? Makes them feel confused or just like have a lot of friction, it just starts to deteriorate the kind of the relationship and the foundation you build as like that trusted advisor, which seems crazy because it's like not that hard to fill out a PDF, but like if there's a better way, and especially if they're aware of a better way through a competitor or through a process they take with something non-insurance, that just kind of decreases like our value, especially early on. So, and I can go on and on. There's so many things we're doing with all of the process that kind of has a similar foundation and similar fundamentals. But yeah, that's an important one because you don't want to waste someone's time. You also want to like find ways to build trust early on. So when they get to the next phases of the process, there's just like a mutual understanding of how we do business.
Well, and everyone's got a set amount of time. I mean, you own an agency. I'm scaling an insurtech, and it's like if anything asks my time and then makes me stop and start and do over again, I lose it because I
Yep,
can't deal with it. And then to your point, we're burning valuable calories on process, not relationship, which
that's right.
in the agent broker world, it's like, well, relationship is how most of this stuff moves. Yeah, there's a product solution
100%.
pricing, but like if I'm wasting valuable calories on application and not on why you should find value in me or my solution, then I'm losing even if I'm winning.
Yeah. And like I try to wear the like tech enabled kind of badge on our sleeves as much as we can and really push the like, hey, we're sort of tech forward, but I always want that to be secondary to like what our core value is, and that's the relationship and the human part of our business. Like the tech's great and like it definitely helps us win business and helps us keep our customers happy. But really we're a people business. So my objective always with building the tech isn't to replace the human, it's to actually give time back to the human process. Because if our customers aren't wasting time on the process, and if our team members internally, especially, aren't wasting time in the process, that just gives everyone more time to have conversations, talk about insurance, talk about how to protect their business, talk about benchmarking, risk analysis, all this stuff that we sort of add in to do what we're supposed to be doing. That's not, you know, acting as a billing department or a process department. We should be advising our clients on how to best protect what they're building.
Yeah, just speaking my language. So, for those who don't know Fullsteam, Fullsteam.io,
Yeah.
um, so it's easy to try and solve everything. You've kind of narrowed it down to things that really affect you, your relationship, and the value you can provide. Class of businesses you focus on. Are you a generalist? Are you kind of really narrow? How do you kind of devote your time and energy to stuff like this?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I think we definitely fall into a generalist category, not necessarily by design, but more by the partnerships we have. You know, we work with tons of venture capital, private equity, outsourced CFO, outsourced cyber, you know, these big partners that work with all sorts of companies. So we've been fortunate enough to have different verticals and support lots of different businesses. I'd say most of our clientele's in the technology, media, entertainment, hospitality, CPG, and life sciences are like probably our biggest ones. But like we just brought on a guy who's going to really focus on real estate. We have another guy that does more in the entertainment. So we're sort of at that point where, yeah, we are very generalist, but as we scale, we're starting to create verticals to really specialists within each industry that we are typically working with.
And that does not sound like target markets in Cleveland, Ohio. But
Yeah.
when you talk about that, though, you're talking about classes of business, commercial accounts that expect experience. They're building experience for others.
Yeah.
They're managing experience. They're creating experience. And so I love that you've built a platform and an agency that honors that. Probably coming in, that probably sets you aside from just an average broker who's coming in saying, "Hey, I can help you with your exposure."
Yeah, definitely. And like most of our clients are typically high growth, right? So they either come from, you know, a prior exit, right? or they've just raised a significant amount of money and have a quick plan to grow the revenues, their people, the operations. So really like my goal with creating all of this, all these efficiencies is again to like give more time back so we can do a lot of risk modeling, benchmarking, and start to build real plans to help these guys protect the companies as they scale, which is a huge part of our business. We have conversations almost on a daily basis on how we can start to create less of a reactive insurance plan and more of a proactive insurance plan to protect the ideas.
Yeah, and I think that that goes to, so, just to pause for a second, you're managing that front end, that relationship building probably makes you a high growth agency. You're very niche focused, even though you can write anything in commercial, you've got your appetites that you go after, which probably builds your market or your carrier lineup so that you can support it. And
100%.
certainly from your risk management and from your ability to help that client, it's in your wheelhouse. So you probably look different, sound different, and feel different on the front side. Now we get to the back side of the business. This is where we'd spend all our time at
Yep.
focusing. Now we've got the customer in, and now we've got to work these manual insurance processes back and forth. And I don't talk to a lot of people who talk profit by account, or in my terms, cost per transaction. When you guys look at 94% of your revenue comes from retaining, right? So it's like we got to retain this stuff, make money. How do you look at the modern insurance operations as you look out over the next 3 years? How are you seeing scale from your perspective in terms of how to do it the right way?
Yeah, definitely. And I think this goes back to what I was saying before about kind of how we approach the problems within the agency. Right now, basically everything we do is sort of a four-step process. First, we look at a problem, and if we can build our own software internally, proprietarily to solve that problem, that's what we do. If that can't be done, whether it's because of cost or it's just like out of like the scope of our developers' capabilities, then we will bring in a third-party software business to add to our tech stack. If that's not the best option, then we would bring in our outsourced team, who are amazing, but are just like, you know, not not able to do what the tech can do, or it's not necessary for a US worker to do it. We would have our outsourced team do that. And then finally, if it can't be done with tech, it can't be done with our outsourced talent, then we have a US worker fix that problem. And that's how we look at every single issue within the agency.
Yeah, and let's face it, I mean, there's still a lot of insurance processes that are just they're gonna be brute force for a while. It's just you gotta get the biscuit in the basket and someone's gotta do it, and
That's
it's
right.
it's not a high brain output, but it's high volume repetitive process. That's just how we function in 2025. So you
Yep.
gotta be able to do that. But to your
And
point.
that'll always be there, especially when you think about compliance and like
Agreed.
just the need to have a, US worker team member speak to the client, speak to the carrier. But yeah, there's tons of ways to fix problems that are sort of outside the scope of like what someone in the US or a team member that has more valuable time with the client, versus doing something that is just like super low of the totem pole work.
Yeah, so you talked about, your technology. If we can build it, we're gonna build it. If we can't, we're gonna partner on that. And if 3, we're gonna either use it through our teams, we're gonna be focused on relationship, or we're gonna outsource it to our teams where we can just focus on process. Makes complete sense. So when you think about, um where most agents and brokers are coming at it from, most of them are just buying the software, right? And there's a lot of
Yeah.
discussion on which one's better or worse. Do
Yep.
you see, do you, and you're probably not the average bird, but um, is that really the best solution for the average bear, is to just go out and buy it? Or do you think that agents and even carriers should be building their own software to kind of meet their needs?
That's a really good question. It's like what's happened in the past year with some of the I don't need to name them. You could probably Google them.
Yeah.
Some of these AI software sort of building tools. I think everything's going to change. I think we're seeing the early phases of how easy it is to now build software without any technical experience. I think it's still early, but I think 2 years ago, 3 years ago, it was costly to build any kind of software because you have to, you know, pay for a developer and do all of that. I think that's all going to change. So the question is like, who's going to do it, or who's just going to create the software and sell it to the, mass amount of insurance agencies? And I guess I remind myself like what the age difference is between me and most agencies and those who are maybe building software. And I think there's a pretty significant number of guys and gals running agencies that probably just don't know about this or have the experience to even start to build their own software. So I think the young shops will certainly be doing what I'm doing and building a lot of their own software. But I think a majority of the shops, at least for the next few years until it becomes like really normal for people to be building their own software with AI tools, are going to be buying third party software from most of these channels.
Yeah, and that's how we think about it at Be Atomic is, hey, listen, if it doesn't have unit volume or unit cost, then leave it for the broker to solve because it's unique. Independent agents and brokers are different, and that's what
Yep.
makes us awesome. But if
Yep.
it's high volume and high cost and now scale can bring it in, that's where we wanna spend our time, and so, as we standardize service requests and transactions and leverage APIs and AI and then brute force for agents, that's something that no one agent can get their arms around solving, so that's where we feel like spend our time, but if we meet someone like you who's solving problems like that, it's like, stay out of it because Tyler knows what's best
Yeah.
for his agency, his customers, and his workflows, and I think that's the respect that insurtech carriers and agents have to start having for each other.
Yeah. I think that's a good point. But like, I also love working with great third parties who are like, spending all of their time and expertise on solving one specific problem. And like, to be honest, it's still a lot of time, out of my day, and costs me a lot to even to build software on our own. Yeah, I think the goal is to always have it internally because I think long term you're going to have more value with the agency because that's a real asset, and I think you're going to have more control over that experience. So I would love to have everything built internally, but we love working with third party companies that are just solving one very specific problem in the most effective way.
Do you think, so there's some legacy systems out there that we depend on as agents and brokers, right? We need policy management systems to house our data. Carriers have their systems. Increasingly, they're becoming large OSs with like Guidewire and Duck Creek and those type of things. Do you see a day where those are more open for that type of thing? I mean, right now they're somewhat closed systems for security and regulatory and all that stuff. But as more and more people start solving their own problems, do you think that's going to change? What's your thought on that?
Do I think the like
To be more
companies are going to
open, more
change?
access. Yeah,
Open,
yeah.
yeah. I don't know. I've gone down the rabbit hole of AMS 360 and some of these big shops, and I'm a little concerned about long term how these companies play out based on that alone. Like, it's very difficult to access their APIs, and it's pretty expensive to even start that process. So the barrier for that is is significant, especially for a small agency that's trying to solve those problems. In addition to that, I think, like I said before, with the availability of these AI tools that could essentially build their own AMS platforms, I think it's still pretty early because like the way these AI tools can like secure and manage large databases and complex sort of workflows is not quite there yet. But I think long term, the combination of like how difficult it is to access the typical large players, these legacy platforms that we all rely on, that that issue with getting into their systems and the costs combined with the availability of how easy it may be to actually build your own is going to change, I think, the entire landscape from just like the AMS standpoint alone. There's other examples of this, but if we're looking at the one thing that we all rely on, it's the AMS system. I think we're going to see some pretty big shifts on who the key players are and what best practices for any new agency.
Yeah, I think, as I think about it, I think everything's data, everything's a process, and then it gets to supporting a relationship. Could be a sales relationship, could be a service relationship, a renewal relationship. And so I think any technology that doesn't address that fact that it's data, it's a process, and then it gets to a human that can manage the relationship is going to struggle. Anyone who supports that going forward, I think has a bright future. And I think you're speaking to it. And I know we certainly feel that way too, that um, humans in 3 or 4 years are not gonna be doing these insurance processes. It's just not gonna be
No,
happening because that's all
no.
movement of information and process. So what are they gonna be doing? They're going to be focused on relationships and the customer and advice and consulting, and any software company who doesn't support that is gonna be find themselves on the other side of the shoe, so to speak, with the agent who's their customer.
Yeah, and any agency who doesn't adapt or who's not thinking about this today will lose, right? Like the norm as a customer of any service business is changing, right? Like the way we do transact anything outside of insurance, right? There's the expectation on how that process works is changing. So if you're an agency that's, still sending out PDFs when that customer knows they can call 10 other agencies and not fill out a PDF, sure, you might have the relationship, but you could lose just from that part of the process alone. So it's really important that, guys and gals getting into this business that are new or that are taking over family businesses, wherever it might be, are thinking about what's normal for, themselves or any other person when they're working with any service business.
Yeah, so how do you then think about the balance of you're visioning out full steam for the next 5 years, and you're looking at the competitive marketplace. There are agencies that are all tech, right? Can't get a human if you tried. There's agencies that are all relationship. We've been here for 100 years and we'll be here for 100 more. And
Yeah.
then there's that kind of full steam seems to be threading the needle between those two, and they're very equally weighted for you. You find importance in both sides of that. Is that really where a founder, CEO of an agency and a company needs to be focused, is where they fit in the middle and how to optimize their position between those two?
Yeah. I mean, it's a good question. You kind of mapped it out like what we're doing. Like we're trying to be tech forward, but, a people business. I think what's going to win is how we continue to serve the target customers that we have and how we are able to attract agents and agencies who are looking to sell. Scale comes from us being able to retain our current customers and keep those conversations going about how much different we are and how much better we are. And then my theory in all of this is if I can continue to create a very efficient and effective agency, which ultimately reduce the costs of the agency, that allows me to compensate agents and service people more. So then we can scale and then ultimately like start to do a lot more M&A and bring on, all of these agencies that are starting to retire that, have great customers that fit our ICP. So I think it's certainly the tech driven agency is going to be in front of that, but not without a really deep expertise and focus on the people inside the organization.
So I love that. So as you think about, it sounds like right now for you, it's infrastructure, getting your process dialed in, your value prop dialed in, whatever. Scale will come, right? There's lots of opportunities in the next 5 or 10 years around M&A and acquisition and other people joining your firm. Like right now, it sounds like you're focused on core infrastructure, core process that will scale. Fair?
Yeah, that's fair. We're like in the because we have an overwhelming amount of business. Like there's almost too much business for us to handle because of the networks we've built. So because we know scale is happening, we're trying to perfect the process across the entire business so it's actually possible. So yeah, right now I think we're focused on building this tech. We're focused on making sure every part of the process is perfect and then making sure we just have the right team to support it.
You said something when we first met, around that point. You said that speed is not your friend when the infrastructure is not ready. Sounds like you've learned from experience.
Yeah, I mean, it can break, and if it doesn't work well, it sort of backfires. So speed speed is really important, but um, only if it works.
So I, I talk to, I don't know, I probably talk to 20 or 30 agencies a week now. In what I do, we're talking to all the time. And it seems like there's this theme emerging that intelligence and well, software and seats are going away. AI, APIs, automations are going to support my high volume, repetitive processes. And I'm going to have less people doing more valuable things. Is
Yeah, I
that
think
the
that's right. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I think that, like, it all goes back to how fast you can do things and how efficiently, but, if you're doing it the right way, you can support a lot more premium and a lot more customers with less people. That's just, like, a fact, and we've already seen it. I think the, like, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, what, like, a typical agent, CSR, and account manager, like, that premium volume that they sort of cap out at is almost doubled when you increase the workflows and tech that solves all those problems. Yeah, so, like, and that's kinda where I wanna go, is to have a very small team relative to the size of the book. Yeah.
Yeah, which makes the numbers better, which means you're more able to acquire, which means you have more dedicated capital, and now you have when opportunity comes, you're there for it. Yeah,
Yeah.
I can see it. Do you think and then I guess this is just a question that that came from your conversation today is there and there's no wrong answer here, but, like, is there more opportunity for process improvement or value on the front side of the experience or on the back side of the experience from your perspective? I guess I'd be curious what your take on that is, if you have one.
And yeah, when you mean front side, what you mean with the customer?
Yeah, ingest, prospecting,
Yeah.
customer experience versus from you as an agency owner and building value, net cash, costs per, per transaction, those type of things. Is there more value on the front side or on the back side? Or don't you even think of it that way?
No,
Yeah,
backside. Yeah,
backside.
front
Yeah.
side's fine. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's not that much in the front side. I mean, yeah, like, we have, like, a amazing customer portal and, like, our
Right.
whole application, like, the stuff that makes our customers' lives easier, but, like, that's the easy stuff. The stuff that costs time is the obvious, right? Data entry, quoting, you know, billing, renewals, like, all this stuff that's happening without our clients knowing, endorsements. There's, like, and then, like, then you're dealing with, because this goes back to your question about, these AMS systems. I think a huge problem when this changes, there's going to be a major shift, is when these carriers start to have better API access and better availability for us to integrate into their systems, so we can start to do things quicker. Because that's, like, for us, I think one of the biggest hangups is when you start to deal with, like, X, Y, and Z's direct billing platform or their quoting platform, or how to chase down an endorsement, like, all these things that you're familiar with. Like, it's all back end for us at this point. The front end's fine.
I'm trying to build a business on that myself, so I appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
It's humbling to speak to somebody younger than you who has it figured out. Like I'm 53, you're not, and it's both.
I don't have it figured out, by the way. I'm figuring it out, but I appreciate
Well,
that. We're
no, I just
working
think,
over here.
listen, I mean, it's a compliment, so just shut up and take it.
Thank you.
It's it's humbling to see people taking this so seriously. When I started trying to solve these problems in my agency, it was 2008. So literally a BlackBerry, a compact
Yeah,
laptop,
right.
and it just
Oh,
wasn't solvable, right? Now to
yeah.
see folks like you doing it in the business and really seeing the return on it and trying and going after it and knowing it's achievable is it's encouraging. It really is. And I appreciate you taking the time not only to educate us, but because all this content goes to our customers but it also hopefully starts a conversation amongst agents and carriers about how we can start solving this stuff, making it easier for us all to do better. So, Tyler, thank you for taking the time today. We appreciate it.
Thank you, man. Appreciate you.
Yeah. Have a good one.
Cool. Talk soon. Thanks. Bye.